in store for us. How you doing, Rosalind? David, I'm wondering if that's our intern, David. So if it is, welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. So I want to spend a few moments in prayer. Listen, if you do have any prayer requests, I would like you to just go ahead and put it in the chat. Just go ahead and put it in the chat. We want to be able to spend some time in prayer, and asking that the Lord will hear our prayer and answer our prayer according to his will for our good, but ultimately for his glory. So if you have any prayer requests, go ahead and put it in the chat. If not, we'll go ahead and spend some time in prayer. I'm starting to see the prayers. Stronger spiritual relationship with Christ, um, future rebaptism, healthy nutrition, family situation. Yeah, the school year is coming up. I understand, David. I understand. Prayer for victory over dealing with a difficult person. Thank you for submitting your prayer requests, and not just me when I pray, but those of us who are on here. Please, let's intercede on behalf of each other, one to another. All right, so let's bow our heads so we can have some time to pray. Father, we want to thank you so much for your grace and your mercy, for seeing us to another midweek Wednesday evening Abundant Living Life Enrichment series. Lord, you have blessed us in the past, and we are looking forward to what you will do for us and what you will say to us today and in the future. But Lord, as we are looking to live abundant lives, we recognize that for many of us, we are dealing with challenges, challenges that seem overwhelming, challenges that would seek to discourage us and distract us and dissuade us and ultimately destroy us. But Lord, you are able to deliver us. And so we're asking for you to do something that we cannot do. We're asking that you would look down in mercy upon every issue, every situation, every circumstance. I ask that you would open doors that nobody seems to be able to open, that you would close doors that nobody seems to be able to shut, that you would make ways out of no way, that you would provide where there seems to be no resources. Lord, we ask for answers where we just seem to be riddled with questions. We ask that you would give peace. We ask that you would give comfort. We ask that you would give strength. We ask that you would answer every issue that we have. Lord, within the chat, people are pouring out their hearts, they're pouring out their requests. And even before they typed, you knew. And so as we are just agreeing with these individuals and joining with them and interceding on behalf of them, we are thankful that you are a God who not only hears our prayer, but who is willing to move on our behalf. Lord, as we're about to go into our various groups, again, I ask that you would open our hearts and open our minds to receive your word, to receive your message, to receive your information. But more than that, more than just knowing and having information, may we put these principles into action. May we persevere where we need to. May we have the courage to make changes as we need to, so that we can live life more abundantly. Thank you for every presenter. Be with them, give them clarity of speech and clarity of thought. And when this session would have finished today, may we even now experience more abundant life. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, Christians should have opened the or have the rooms available. And so once he opens them up, then please feel free to go into your session of choice. I want to remind you, we have a participants guide that you can download if you go to our website, oucsda.org, and then from the website, go to the Watch tab, and then from Watch, click on online and virtual services. I think it's online services, and then go halfway down the page, and you will see where you can not only log in to the Zoom meetings, but on the right of that, you will see where you can download the participants guide. That guide is for you to know a little bit more about the sessions and also give you an opportunity to take notes, etc. So enough of me talking here. Please go ahead and go into your sessions, and blessings to you.
Continuation of anxiety, but this is severe anxiety. How to respond to trauma, where there's sudden, unexpected trauma. And we're going to deal with that when something happens that we don't have any control over. Okay, we like to start all of our sessions with this Bible verse, Matthew 6:34, because we want you to focus on one day at a time, no matter what is happening. And psychologists in doing studies about depression and anxiety has found this to also be true, but it was spoken in the Bible years before. Matthew 6:34. Take therefore no thought for the morrow, for the morrow shall take thoughts for the things of itself. Suffice unto the day is the evil thereof. And so, what is a traumatic experience? Well, this is when you directly experience a traumatic event. You are involved, and it may be life-threatening to you. Physically, mentally, you are experiencing this. And I want to keep in mind that it's not the experience itself that makes it traumatic. It is the impact that it has on you. And so if that traumatic experience, that stressful event, whether it's trauma to you or not, depends on the impact it has on you. And so, therefore, an experience will vary from person to person. And so, now you can be involved in that experience directly. Say, for example, when we talk about Highland, Illinois, where in the 4th of July, that's a traumatic experience. People were killed. People were directly involved in that traumatic experience. Some, they witnessed it, the experience. They might have been looking at it, but they were not directly involved. And so, but if you witness this in person, you see this event occur. You're on the highway and a car catches on fire and someone is in there, but you're not, your life is not threatened, but you witness this traumatic experience. And that can cause you to have a lot of problems. Or you can also just learn about the event, but it occurred to someone that you was close to, someone you loved, a family member, a close friend. And you know, you hear people, if someone was drowned or someone was killed or something, and they start wondering, how long did they suffer? Did they suffer before they died? And they weren't there, but they learned about this occurring, but it occurred to a close friend or family member. And so they're having this traumatic experience. Or you keep experiencing this repeatedly, or you're exposed to it repeatedly, traumatic experiences. And we are concerned about this when we see soldiers that are in war and they're having to go and have firefights all the time. And this is especially true of first responders. They experience these traumatic experiences, but they're seeing it in detail repeatedly because they are called to car accident, fires, death, day after day. And sometimes they were not directly involved in it, but they are seeing these events time and time again. Now, what qualifies as a traumatic experience? It can be mostly anything. It depends on how it impacts you. For example, loss of a loved one, someone you care about, someone you're dependent upon, and it also depends on how they died, whether it was suicide, what they murdered, whether it's sudden like a heart attack, loss of a loved one, financial loss. You lose your job. And research has indicated that a person who has been independent all their lives and lose their job, and now they can't take care of their family. When we look at the emotional impact of that, and we compare it to soldiers who were prisoners of war, they have the same dynamics. Here's someone who has been independent all his life, suddenly loses her job, and can't take care of the family. When you look at the emotional impact, it's similar to people who have experienced being uh, um, prisoners of war. Workplace and school bullying. And we know that children, some of them have committed suicide. This because they've been bullied at school. And this is also take place in the workplace because people are afraid to lose their job. And the boss or somebody might be bullying them. Long-term illness uh, for yourself or a loved one. As I said before, job loss. And of course, abusive and broken relationships, especially when those relationships were very important to you. Also, discrimination, racism, casteism. I remember a case in Point where a young lady worked hard and she was being promoted, and she was Black, and her work was being paid off, and she was getting promoted. She was in the military after she got out the military, and she was moving up. But she moved up so high that some people didn't like it, and they put a sign on her door, a Black symbol, and they just told lies about her, and she was not ready for that. And it really, she was damaged psychologically where she couldn't even hold the job anymore. Backstabbing, cheating on somebody that you trust, and someone takes that you let them into your personal life, into your business, and they backstab you, take your clients, take your customers. You trusted them. You may have been married to them, a family member, brother, sister. Life-threatening accidents, as we said, acts of violence, of course, war, physical and emotional abuse. And here in Huntsville, where it's called Tornado Alley, naturally we can have natural disasters like Katrina and these different storms that comes.
Okay, what we want to do is look at what are the reactions that a person has had to a traumatic experience. And we've talked about different types of traumatic experiences, but also how a person is going to react has to do with their personality, their level of resistance, resilience, any previous traumatic experiences, what other stresses are occurring in their life. Like a person might have something to happen to them, and then something else happens to them, something else happens to them. For example, maybe losing a family member. I know during COVID, well, COVID still exists, but before they had the vaccine, one person that I know, they lost a family member 1 month, another family member the next month, another family member the next month. Another person I know, they lost 4 family members. This was before COVID in a short period of time. So a person might have something at the last situation and it's not as bad, but it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. They just can't handle the situation anymore. So let's look at some of the reactions. A person is feeling as if they're in a state of high alert or on the watch for something else to happen. When you had traumatic experience to happen, situations that you had no control over, then your antennas go up. You wake up and you wonder, okay, what's going to happen today? What's going to happen tomorrow? Also, another reaction can be just feeling absolutely numb. You have heard of people who've been in a car accident, and they're just walking around and they're not talking. It's just like they're being a zombie because so much has happened that basically their emotional system is just shut down. Another is becoming emotional and upset. Another feeling extremely fatigued and tired because basically they have used up all their resources just to maintain that they're still alive. You think about, again, what happened in Illinois a few days ago. Um, you know, just trying to manage that situation. If you are a say a policeman or you are a responder, you would be extremely fatigued and tired after that situation. Especially if you've been dealing with situations like that, month after month. It might not have been on the news, but you still have been dealing with death and life situations. A person becomes very protective of others, including family members. Again, I'm mentioning what happened in Illinois. The parents who were killed, the father was on his 2-year-old to protect him. He didn't survive, but people trying to protect their family, protect their children. Okay, not wanting to leave a particular place in fear of what might happen. And a person might get to the point that they don't want to leave their house anymore because they feel that if they step out of the house, something terrible is going to happen. They don't want to leave their state, leave their car because they have all these thoughts of what might happen. And then swinging between these different reactions, of being hypersensitive, either just going to being depressed and really not functioning at all. Continuing, let's look at mental reactions to trauma. One thing, a person who's been under a lot of trauma, you talk to them later on, they'll talk about how they're having difficulty focusing. They might have a job that requires for them to concentrate. Let's say they're an accountant or whatever job they have. They're not able to focus anymore because their mind is having these intrusive thoughts. They're having flashbacks on the situation. They might have triggers. Let's say if a person had something disastrous happen to them, maybe they saw a person being robbed in front of a Walmart, in front of a store, then they don't want to, they might be driving around and see a similar store, and it serves as a trigger and brings back those experiences. And confusion and disorientation. A person gets to the point that they don't even trust the world anymore. They don't trust even their own decision making because of this traumatic experience. Looking at emotional reactions, as one would expect, fear, anxiety, and panic. If you happen to, be in a situation, as we said, where we live is called Tornado Alley. Tornadoes, come through this area. And so, on the news, they're going to be broadcasting. Here they broadcast by street by street. Okay, if you live in this neighborhood, it's so many minutes away, it's so many minutes away. Well, if a person has experienced tornadoes where the roof blew out, they ran into the bathroom, the walls went down, the wind picks them up in their bathtub and lands them outside. When they start hearing those sirens go off, they start panicking because they are responding to it has happened before. And even if it happens the first time, it's still going to be quite overwhelming to you. The next would be shock. You have people after a traumatic experience walking around, say again, the tornadoes in this area, walking around, the house is completely destroyed. They just can't believe what happened. Or a car accident, or a person in the war, or even if a person, let's say if they were sexually molested and they're just left there and the person is gone and they're saying to themselves, I just can't believe this happened to me. And again, that numb feeling, feeling detached, not wanting to connect with others. You hear individuals who have gone through traumatic experiences, they don't want to socialize anymore, even if they, let's say, they might end up, say, going to church, but they don't want to sit near anyone. Or if they have a partner or spouse who's very friendly and like to have people come to their house, they don't want to be involved. They might come up with, excuses, to leave the house, or they find some activity so that they are not there. Continuing along, they feel like the danger is still there. It makes it difficult for them to, go forward in their life because they're thinking that that something's going to happen, and they might even be in an area that's very safe. That what happened to them before, it's impossible for it to happen again. But again, in their mind, because of the flashbacks, because um, of their mental set of how they're looking at the world again, it's still going off. And again, those triggers, are making them remember what has happened. And then that let down feeling after the crisis is over. You're busy, you're trying to save your life, you're trying to save somebody else's life. And then when everything is over, a lot of times a person will feel guilty. I'm still alive. Nothing happened to me. What was it about me that I made it, while the other person, who they might say their life was more valuable than theirs, they probably would have contributed more to society than they did. Why me? And so they have this letdown phase.
Well, you can see that there are a number of reactions to stress and to trauma. And so there's a physical reaction to trauma. We have talked about the mental reaction, also the emotional reaction, and now we'll look at the physical reaction, because the mind and the body works together. Every part of your body, in terms of your thinking, physically, mentally, you are responding to this trauma that you have experienced. So here again, your physical body, because it has used all of its energy and resources to address this traumatic experience, and you become fatigued, tired, and just really exhausted, physically exhausted. You are also mentally exhausted, as was pointed out before. And physically, because of that experience, you can have sleep disturbance, apnea, sleep apnea. Your mind is running during the night. People talking about not being able to sleep. Many times physicians or psychiatrists will maybe giving people medication to help them sleep, because the mind cannot rest. And even at night, they're unable to sleep during the day, only sleeping 3 hours a night, etc. And of course, the body is responding. The digestive system certainly responds. You can become nauseated, vomiting, being dizzy, because physically your body is responding to being in this highly alert in flight or fight mode, because of this trauma that you've been experiencing. And so mentally you can become dizzy, and certainly there are headaches. And we talk about people that person is really a headache because they are causing stress. Well, if you can have tension headaches just because of some everyday stress, or migraine headaches. Can you imagine the kind of headaches you can have when you're experiencing trauma? Because here again, the body is reacting, the blood vessels are reacting to all of this. There's excessive sweating and perspiration that is going on. The body is in the state of fight or flight. And certainly there's an increase in your heart rate. That can also be, that would generally cause heart issues. We know about the situation in Texas where one of the teachers at that shooting at the school, they talked about the husband a few days later after his wife was killed, died of a heart attack. And people talk about that his heart was broken because of the loss of his wife. And so we will get increase in heart rates because the mind and the body is working together. So there's that physical reaction to it. Now, we are thinking, we have emotions, we have feelings, our body's a reaction, but there's also behavior responses to trauma. So this is about what do you do once you experience, what are some things that you do or do not do? And one of them is to avoid reminders of the event. Anything that would remind you of that event, then you want to avoid it. For example, if someone was injured or killed as a result of a boating accident, then this person doesn't want to get into a boat anymore, may become too afraid of the water, avoid water. Some people may even avoid going across a bridge. If an accident happened near a bridge or near water, the anxiety becomes so great that they avoid those reminders of that event, even to avoiding people, as we've said before, and just become socially isolated. There is an inability to stop focusing on what has occurred. In other words, your mind keep focusing on that. You can't concentrate on your job or your relationships because you're so focused on what has occurred. And because you only can focus on that particular thing, the rest of your activities and the rest of your relationships can fall apart because you can only, the person can't stop focusing on that incident, and they can't refocus on their job, they can't focus on their relationships. And relationships is broken up because marriages has ended because there was a traumatic experience and one of the couples could not focus on the other children, could not focus on their spouse. Get and emerge in recovery related tasks. You want to recover, you immerse yourself in it, and any task that might be related to this. So as a result, you lose touch with your normal daily routine. And remember, at some point, we want people to be able to get back to their normal daily routine. Now, it might be a new normal, but the point is that it is a normal daily routine that after a certain period of time, you want to be able to get back to that. But they lose touch with normality and a normal daily routine. There can be a change in appetite. You can see, if you look at the news today, one of the person with the January 6th who was traumatized by being put out there by the past president. Well, she talked about the trauma of not wanting to give her name out, not going anywhere, and being traumatized, the hate letters that she was receiving. She was afraid for herself and her mother. And she indicated that she had gained about 60 pounds since that traumatic experience. So some people isolated, they're eating a lot, and then other people may eat less, and they lose a lot of weight as a result of the trauma. Many people may turn to alcohol and drugs, cigarettes, a lot of coffee. You're taking a lot of drugs and stuff in order to numb the pain. This is a way that a person, because of cigarettes, cigars, alcohol, other kinds of drugs, they're trying to numb the pain, and they turn to these substances. And as we stated before, there can be sleep problems that one might have. Now, let's look at naturally, we want to make sense of the traumatic event. And how do we make sense of it? These are some of the kinds of questions that we might ask because we're trying to make sense of it. As soon as people heard about the shooting at the parade in Illinois, one of the first questions people would ask, well, why did he do it? What is his motive? Because they want to make some sense out of it because this does not make sense. And so when we've had trauma, a traumatic experience, we like to try to make some sense out of it by thinking about how did it happen? Why did it happen? Why did it happen to me? And a lot of times there are no real answers to this, but people search for those kinds of answers. How and why did I get involved? Why did this involve me? Why was I there at that particular time? I didn't really want to go, or I encouraged that person to come. If I had not encouraged them, they may not have been there. So why did you as an individual become involved in this traumatic experience and experience this trauma? Why do you feel the way you do? Because you have this mixture of feelings, a whole wheel of different types of feelings about it. You know, we already talked about false guilt. There may be guilt feelings, survival guilt. I survived, but the other person didn't, and they were standing right beside me. I was in the car accident. I walked away, and they didn't. Why do you feel the way you do? Whether feeling you have indication of the kind of person I am. What is this saying about me that I'm feeling this way? So you're doing this self-assessment, trying to make sense of it. Whether the experience has changed your view of life. A lot of people say, my life is not the same, for better or for worse, because of that experience. And so we tend to look at trying to make sense of the trauma that we have experienced. Now, here's a verse James 1:2-4. Consider the pure joy, my brother, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature, complete, not lacking in anything. So things do happen to us, and we still, no matter what it is, there is a word from the Lord.
And so now what we want to do is look at strategies of how to resolve traumatic experiences that have happened to us. And the first strategy that we have here is recognizing. You want to recognize and acknowledge that you have been through a stressful or frightening experience. And so then The question then is, how are you going to respond to it? If you were in Katrina and your house was floated away, how are you going to respond to it? What do you plan to do? If you were, in the war, whether it's the Gulf War or Vietnam War, any of the combat um, services that we've had, and you've gotten out of the military, you're back, recognizing that you have been through a lot of stress. You've experienced and seen things that you probably were not prepared to see and deal with. And so once a person recognizes it, the next step is to accept it. And you accept the fact that you're not going to feel your normal self for a time. And for most people, it will pass, versus just ignoring and pretending like, nothing happened. Something did happen. Something happened to you, something happened to a family member, something happened to someone who was very close to you. And so then you're going to say, okay, I accept what happened. And I know that what I'm going through is not going to be permanent. I will get through this. And as a Christian, you depend on the Lord. You know that the Lord is with you. And sometimes a person finds it difficult to accept that, how could this thing happen to me? And I'm faithful and to the Lord. For example, say if a person finds out that their spouse has terminal cancer and they're deceased in 3 weeks, how do you deal with that? How would this happen to us, a nice Christian family? But you accept the fact that we live in a sinful world, and the Lord gives the sunshine and the rain on the just and the unjust, but you still remember that the Lord is with you. And the next one is remind yourself. Remind yourself every day that you're going to manage it. You're not going to try to manage what happened and come up with plans for 12 months down the road. You're taking it day by day. And so you're going to be doing different things, different reminders to let you know that I will get through today. Maybe if I can accomplish one thing today, I consider myself as being successful. And maybe before a traumatic event occurred, you were able to get A, B, C, D done. So right now you're taking it day by day. You're doing what you have control over and not what you don't have control over. And you want to make sure that you don't use crutches, as we mentioned, alcohol and drugs, because what that does, it just numbs you. Many people don't realize that alcohol is a depressant, and a person many times are feeling high anxiety, experiencing depression over the traumatic experiences that they've had. And so in their mind, well, if I drink some alcohol, it's going to numb me. But what it does is it's going to numb your senses, and you're going to be more depressed, and you're not going to be able to cope with the situation effectively. Okay, continuing with our strategies, avoid making major decisions or big life changes until you feel better. And like a lot of times, if a person has a spouse to pass, people will let them know, you don't make a decision immediately. You're not going to sell your house for 12 months. You're not going to make a decision and say a person got a divorce, I'm not going to remarry in 3 months. You're going to take your time and go through the process. Sometimes individuals, they're ready to kind of jump through and not go through the normal grieving process of whatever has happened to them. And so they say, okay, if I jump into this, then I can forget about it. And then it comes back to them later on. And so gradually confront what's happened to you and try not to block it out. Because as I was saying before, when you try to do that, it's still in there. So bottling your feelings up is not going to be beneficial. Find someone that you trust, that you can talk to, who can give you support, who can empathize with you, and help walk you through whatever the situation is. Try to keep your normal routine and stay busy. Sometimes a person with that normal routine, they might can just do a little bit of that routine every day. You're going to do something every day. You're not going to stay in the bed, be depressed, and don't function. You're going to get up and do something. Okay. Don't go out of your way to avoid certain places or activities, and don't let the trauma confine your life. Some people will give up on life, either because of depression, because of anxiety, because of fear, whatever the emotional situation that they're going through. They just give up. And a person wants to continue. Sometimes in life, well, not sometimes, but everyone's going to have some type of challenge in their life. And when you have the challenge, sometimes you just have to stay down for a while, but then you have the attitude that you're going to get up. You have the philosophy. Failure is not making a mistake or experiencing a trauma. Failure is when you don't get up from it, when you don't move forward.
And as we talk about these strategies, for example, when we talk about staying busy and this kind of thing, that doesn't mean that you are just becoming a workaholic so that you can avoid dealing with it. You notice we talked about you want to acknowledge it, which means that you lean into it. And the other thing is that many times we have to take some of the pain with us, but we are still moving forward. It doesn't mean I'm completely over it, but I'm able to function even though I have these issues that I have. I'm not stuck. I'm able to function. It's talking about sometimes we unable to get out of the rain, we have to learn to dance in the rain. And so as we continue to look at strategies, when you're feeling exhausted, and we said that you may, when you experience trauma, you may, because of you're exhausted, all of your energy and resources, that you may feel exhausted physically as well as mentally. So make sure you set aside time to just rest and know that you're going to rest and relax. Take time for regular exercise. It helps to clear your body as well as to relieve your mind of tension. And so one of the things, even when there's trauma, and is to still, you have to take good care of yourself as much as possible. Getting to sleep, eating, taking the showers. You still have to nourish yourself, eat well, exercise. Taking care of yourself will help you deal with the traumatic experience. Help your families and friends to help you by telling them what you need, such as time out or someone to talk to. And I had, even today, I called someone, and later on they called me back and they said, well, I'll just talk to Calvin later because right now I just need a time out. I need a time out. They were going through something. They knew I had called them. I called them twice because I was concerned, but they just needed a time out. And of course, later on they called. So if you need that time out, take that time out and take care of yourself physically. We've always talked about relaxation, using relaxation techniques such as yoga, breathing, meditate on some things. This is not the same as hypnosis. We meditate on the things like the goodness of God, uh, taking deep breaths, taking a walk out, getting fresh air, doing things that you enjoy doing, especially if it's something physical, because you're doing something you enjoy doing and your body is moving. So you're getting help in two different places. The body is moving and you're doing something you enjoy doing. Listening to music, or you like being in the garden, or you have different hobbies that you might like, do something. And if it's helpful to do something that has a physical component to it. Express your feelings. We are emotional people. We do have feelings. We need to express them in a safe place where they will be accepted and not judged. So you got to, when you express your feelings, you have to make sure you know who you're expressing them to. Someone who is comfortable in you expressing your feelings and your thoughts, and they are not uncomfortable with it. They're gonna keep them confidential, and someone that you trust. You can tell them about your feelings. A lot of people like to write them down, and as they are writing, they find that to be therapeutic, and they can come back the next day and see how they felt that day. Or, people talk about what a difference a day makes, or what a difference a week makes. And sometimes if someone has written how they felt that day, how they feel the next day, and how they felt the next day, and they come back a week later and they feel it now, and they can see their progress actually in writing, that they are able to more reconcile and they are feeling better, and they can actually see their progress by writing it down. Now, when the trauma brings up memories and feelings, try to confront them. Don't try to run away from them, but lean into them, because they are real, they are the reality, and we are emotional beings. Even Christ himself, he wept. And so we are emotional beings. Think about them, and if it brings up other memories, try to keep them separate from what might be occurring in your life now. And sometimes you have to deal with things separately, because you have this trauma that you've been dealing with it. And then there's something else. And if you can keep them separate and you can deal with it.
And we have this Bible text to keep in mind. He has delivered us from such deadly peril, and he will deliver us again. On him we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us. And so we have plenty of scriptures in the Bible that gives us courage and gives us hope. So we want to hold on to it. Now,
healing and recovery process. Many times we may be operating in an emergency mode. This is normal when we've had trauma. We are operating in an emergency mode, and this can put a lot of stress on our bodies, physically, mentally, as well as spiritually. And so we want to try to get out of that always operating in terms of an emergency mode. Because being in an emergency mode uses up vital energy and supplies the physically, mentally, and even people who are there to help us. The body should reset itself to a normal state of balance and equilibrium after perhaps 1 month when you've gone through traumatic things. So we're talking about resetting. It might be a new normal, but the key word here is balance. You want to be able to balance your life. That's why we talk about normal routines and reaching that equilibrium. Now, there's no certain time on it per se, but in terms of getting over it, but we are reconciling that this did happen. I did the best I could under those circumstances. I'm not completely over it, but I can move forward. I'm not stuck. I'm not paralyzed. I can carry some of that pain with me, but yet I'm moving. I'm able to keep it moving. I'm able to take on my responsibilities, yet I do not have amnesia, so I do still remember it. I do have some feelings about it. There, I might see things that trigger, but I'm able to move forward. I'm able to help other people.
Now, for some people, the trauma becomes so overwhelming that they stop functioning. And so if you or somebody that you know have gotten to the point that they're feeling very depressed and they're not functioning, they're unable to handle intense feelings or physical sensations. They don't have normal feelings anymore. They just feel like they're just going through life that they can't love, they can't cry, they cannot feel any emotions. They're having these feelings and they're not going back to kind of a normal feeling after 3 or 4 weeks. They're continuing to have the physical stress symptoms. They're still having the nightmares. They're still having the disturbed sleep. They're still dreaming about the events. They're getting, less than 4 hours of sleep at night. They're just not able to function, and they're deliberately avoiding things that remind them of the traumatic experience. They're staying inside their house. They're not driving their car anymore. They're not crossing a bridge anymore. And so when all those things are happening, that a person's not able to balance out and kind of gradually move into a normal routine, then they want to seek professional help. Now, also, if you don't have anyone to share your feelings with, as my husband mentioned, when you're talking to someone, you want to make sure that you're talking to someone that you can trust. And so if you feel like you don't have someone, and then sometimes even family and friends are so overloaded because they might too have been involved in that same situation that they're not able to be a support system. They need a support system themselves. Finding relationships with friends and families are suffering. Again, you want to seek professional help. You've cut your family members off. They call you and you won't answer the phone. They text message you. They try to communicate with you, and you just will not respond to them at all. Again, if you become accident prone, you're using alcohol and drugs as a way to deal with it. You're not able to return back to work. Sometimes individuals have had such stressful experiences on the job, they've been traumatized, that they're not able to go back to their job. Let's say, for example, they worked at let's say a drugstore, and it was robbed several times. So they get to the point they cannot manage going back to work or even going back into any type of drugstore. They're not managing their responsibilities, whether you're paying the bills or just taking care of the responsibilities that's on them. They continue to relive the traumatic experiences, continue to have flashbacks of that experience. And they just feel that their anxiety level is so high that they are not able to manage. They might even have suicidal thoughts, even though they might say to themselves, I'm not going to do that to my family, but those types of thoughts are occurring too often. And so they will decide that. Friends might urge them, okay, I think you need some professional help.
Okay, lastly and quickly, I just want to emphasize a lot of times when we're talking about traumatic experiences and we talk about post-traumatic stress disorders, and usually we associate it with the military and war, but traumatic experience happen in civilian life too. And a lot of times, because of all the things that we've said before, many people diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorders, even if they've been in a domestic violence experience. They all the trauma that we talked about before. A person can have post-traumatic stress disorders. I mentioned a person who had was moving up in her job and then fell into discrimination because of racism and all of that. Well, she ended up with a post-traumatic stress disorders diagnosis because the stress was so much that she had all the symptoms of someone who was in war. So after a distressing event, some people find that their reactions are serious, and after a period of time, they're still not able to get over it. It is severe. It lasts for a long time. It affects their relationship with families and friends. And they're diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorders. And so as we looked at all of this, we want to leave you with this scripture, Hebrews 13, verse 5. Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. And so no matter what we're experiencing, God is with us. Now we open this up for questions or comments at this particular time. You can see we can become very talkative.
No, we love it. Thank you so much for another very informative presentation. As usual, I took lots of notes, and please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put it in the chat. Of course, I always have a question. So my first question is, you mentioned that trauma is not really a specific event, it's how a person reacts to the event. So that would mean that there's certain events that can occur that may be trauma to one person and not trauma to somebody else.
Yes, because it depends upon a lot of things. Certainly the severity of the trauma, the personality of the person. And some of us, resiliency is a part of our personality, and others not so much. Some of us are already living at a high level of anxiety, just normal everyday life. We're living at a higher level of anxiety. So it doesn't take much to push us over the top, but somebody else is living a more calm, relaxed life. Then that person might have a different reaction. So our personalities has an impact on it. The amount of support that we have will also determine, because some people know that they are not alone. They have family, they have church, they have friends. So from the very beginning with that traumatic experience, they have support. Somebody else, no support. And all of these different things will determine the kind of impact it will have on you.
I see. So you mentioned also that a person should find let me ask this question. a lot of the topics that you spoke about, for example, you spoke about anxiety, and after experience a traumatic event, of course, anxiety can be one of the symptoms. And all of these, many of these mental illnesses or emotional wellness issues, they kind of overlap.
Right.
I would imagine it's difficult to diagnose someone. How would you diagnose someone with trauma? I guess, and that might be an ignorant question that I'm asking, but
A person, let's say a person is diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, um, and they still are going to have some elements of depression. They're going to have some elements of anxiety, and there's a manual that has a list of criteria. And so many times it's hard to differentiate between them, but you look at which of these different behaviors, the different reactions that they're having, the different symptoms that they're having, what criteria do they match or do they meet? And so whether it's PTSD or whether it's major depression or whether it's generalized anxiety, those kind of overlap. But again, you look at the criteria. And if a person is a physician, a psychologist and counselor making the diagnosis, that's what they're going to look at. But for the person themselves, whether they are diagnosed with PTSD or major depression, they still are going to be going through whatever reactions that they're going through. And so for them, the biggest focus would not be on what the diagnosis is for them, but what are you going to do to try to deal with what you're going through so that you can cope more effectively.
Yeah. And also the longevity of the symptoms. The symptoms may be the same in a lot of situations, but within a reasonable amount of time, a person overcomes them. So we might just call that an acute stress disorder. You're going through it right now, but the average person is going to be able to function in a certain period of time. But now, if those kinds of symptoms continue for a longer period of time, then that's when they might be diagnosed with PTSD. Now, I might have all the symptoms of PTSD right after it happened. That's just normal. That's not abnormal. But if I maintain those over a longer period of time, that might be when the diagnosis is.
I see. All right. So my last question is, how you mentioned that one should express their feelings in a safe place.
Yes.
And I would consider the church to be a safe place. What's the church's role, or it should be a safe place, I should say.
Right.
What's the church's role, or what are some things that the church can do to better help people who've gone through trauma and are experiencing, related feelings to trauma?
Well, one of the things that the churches are doing, and I've seen it over the years, and we're getting better at it, that they're acknowledging the reality of these situations. Even some pastors will say, well, I'll do pastoral counseling, but this is a little bit more than that. And so they might even put it in their budget where they will refer people for mental health therapy. And letting people know that it's okay and taking the stigma off. And that if you're going through these experiences, it doesn't mean that God is not with you. It doesn't mean that you don't have any faith because you're experiencing trauma, you've experienced trauma, and you're experiencing anxiety. And therefore, there was a time when we even denied if somebody got a divorce, we didn't talk about that in the church. But now churches are having divorce care and sponsoring it and saying, it's okay. I know that I was learning about one church, and they would have a quick service. The minister would speak, and then they would say something like, those of you who need support with depression, room over here. Those for divorce over here. We're all broken, and you come here because you're broken. And it's okay to be broken in this church because this is a safe place to be broken, and we have help for you. And so those of you who are experiencing the drug and alcohol, there's the Family Life Center room, so and so and so. And the people felt okay getting up and going to that room because the church has said, we are broke people. Everyone is broken somewhere. Everybody has some issues, some problems. There are no perfect families. We have issues, and we don't mind, and you don't have to be alone. It's not a sin because you have those issues. It doesn't mean that God doesn't love you. He wants to help heal you. And so it's okay. This is a safe place. And the more that the church can get that kind of message out, the more that we'll be able to help even with the word of God, as well as professional and the counseling and stuff, because people will know that the church is a safe place for you.
Amen. Amen. And even doing seminars like this, it's very helpful. So this is a good thing that we're doing. We're making people aware, and it's something that we do need to do a better job. I believe in the church. All right. Well, that is it for now. Next week, we're going to be talking about depression, I believe.
Yes.
You want to give us a little bit of an insider there?
Well, it's the number one mental disorder. And so what we want to do is just kind of share what a person can do to manage their depression.
Yes. I think we've all been there. I know I have. And it's something that really needs to be talked about. We still have the stigma, as someone mentioned in the chat, of when it comes to these types of things. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with it. We all go through these different changes. Life is tough. Life is very, very tough. And we have to make sure that we are getting the help that we need. All right. So a question just popped up. Is this session good and safe? I hope so. I hope so. This session is good and safe. Well, once again, Drs. Matthews, we are so thankful for you, and we look forward to your presentation next week. Next week that would be number 4, and we will be halfway through the series. So I'm looking forward to your presentation, and I know that there are others as well. So I'm asking everyone, please, if you are enjoying these sessions, please make sure to invite someone, tell others about it. And we will be back here next week at the same time, same place. And we look forward to seeing you.
We appreciate you too, Dr. James, for coordinating everything. and
Oh,
being
well, my
close to
pleasure.
us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Good night, everyone.
This meeting is being recorded. The recording has stopped.
Good night, guys.
Good night. See you next week. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.